Hello, hello. Welcome to this episode of The Creative Pause. My name is Susan Padron, and I am here with my co-host, who I will allow to introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Stacey Faye. It's so good to be with you on this spring day. We here at the Creative Pause like to offer these episodes as a moment of solace in your day or connecting in or a smile, some way to kind of ground you in your day. And we hope that each of these episodes have done that. And today with Majet, we'll introduce her more formally in a moment, but today with her, we'll really kind of dive deeper into the element of our stories and some of our adversities that actually can be a source of our power. Not only in this time, but a day-to-day basis as well, beyond this pandemic. So we'll introduce Majet in a moment, but before we do, we always start our episodes just asking how everyone's doing. So if you're watching live, we'd love for you to chime in on the chat of how your day is going or your week is going. And if you're listening to the recording, feel free to say it aloud, journal about it, or do whatever might be helpful to get those feelings out. So I'll start first, and Susan will also share, and then Majet will share a few words. My day today is interesting. I feel like I'm in the mode of thinking ahead. It's probably because I'm in the latter stages of my pregnancy, so it involuntarily I'm sort of in nesting and thinking mode. But also today, we decided, my husband and I decided to officially send the word to my son's daycare that we weren't going to be coming back. And that we're going to, seek out other options for childcare. And that was, that's been a decision driven largely by this pandemic because it felt right. The time I've had with him and the way I've seen him happier and healthier than I have in a long time just drove me to that decision and drove us to that decision. So it was an interesting day from that perspective too, of I don't actually know what like how I'm going to get any help exactly, come when this pandemic breaks, but I'm just trusting in the process and trusting in my gut feeling, and I made that decision. So so it's been a good day overall, but interesting to start to kind of move that ball forward, right? Like I don't have the answer of what it's going to look like beyond this, but I know that the things I've realized in this pandemic are important and that I want to focus on are important to do that and to keep that in our lives, beyond this time. So anyway, that's where I'm at. How are you doing, Susan?
I'm doing all right. I think what I'm struggling with a little bit today is just thinking about where we are right now, like what this looks like, and when it's okay to be hopeful again, or when it's okay to be optimistic again. Like I found that I'm okay with when I have a good day and being happy. I'm totally fine with that. Like I can embrace that. I can embrace the days where I don't feel happy, where I'm having a bad day or a bad part of my day, and I can embrace that. But I think kind of similar to what you were saying, Stacey, about like the looking ahead portion is something that I've been kind of working through also, obviously in different ways. But I'm normally a very optimistic person, not in like a spiritual bypassing, like good vibes only kind of thing, but just in a way that, I understand when things are tough and when they suck, but I always try to look for where that positive element is. And I just don't know when it's going to be okay to have that. And that's what I've been struggling with lately. I don't know. So yeah, that's where I'm at. But Majet, how are you?
How am I? To be honest with you, ladies, and to everybody who's with us today, I'm actually feeling excited about this week. And it's interesting because I was speaking to someone on the phone yesterday, and it's somebody from California who's also doing what I do as a therapist or a mental health advocate. He's not technically a therapist. And I asked him that question, like, how are you? It's like, well, that's a very loaded question. Who asks that anymore? I stopped asking that question. I'm like, oh, I was just wondering because, some people are actually thriving during this pandemic. And he said, oh, who are they? Like the CEOs of the big shot companies who are getting the money from. And like I understand where he's coming from. But at the same time, I am not always excited or happy about the week. for the past 6 weeks. It's our sixth week now. And for the past 2 weeks, I felt like I've been feeling good. And it took but 4 weeks before that, I wasn't at that point. I was actually feeling really low. And but for some reason, and there are reasons, right, why I'm feeling a little bit more elated. And I think we go through that phases, right, of that roller coaster of emotions. But at this moment, at this point, this week, that's how I feel right now. And it's excitement. I guess because I'm going to talk to you ladies. And earlier today, I had a podcast interview, and then tomorrow I have a webinar. And I think it's just those things that I have to do makes me feel this excitement. But at the same time, I still worry, and that's okay, right, that the following weeks will bring me back down. But I'm going to stay in the moment. I'm going to feel the excitement that I feel right now and be okay with it. So, yeah.
That's so great. And I think I need to take on some of that too, just being in the moment and when I can, and not focus so much as looking, I'm looking forward and looking ahead. And that's really fascinating what your colleague was saying too about the, how are you doing? Like, who asks that question anymore? Like,
Yeah.
that's, yeah. I mean, it is a weighted question. And I really appreciate you sharing that with us because, Stacey and I were constantly talking about the show and how, what we're doing, if certain parts of the show are still resonating with people, and like how we should adapt or evolve, if anything. And part of it was like, should we keep sharing how we're doing? Should we keep checking in with people? And I love how hard you're nodding, Majet, because that makes me really happy. And I'm sure it makes Stacey happy too.
Yes, I mean, that's what we want to hear others to ask us too, right? Of course we want somebody to ask us how we feel. We want to know, some of us really do care about how other people feel. We know, and we're not going to judge them or shame them for it, right? Or we're going to resonate with each other and we relate, so let's support each other on that. Or awesome, let me have some of that energy of goodness and good vibes, right? So yeah, keep asking that question. That's an awesome question.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's very apropos for our earlier conversations today. Yeah, but it is a cultural thing, right? It's not in the culture of American society a lot of times to actually genuinely ask. People want you to say, "Oh, I'm good," or "I'm okay," and it's like, I don't do that. I mean, you can see that on the show. I don't do that, but in real life, I'm like, do you really want to know? Because I'll tell you how my day is going if it's not a good day. And I think it's important to let people know they're heard and seen, and that our feelings matter. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that really could not have been timed in a more perfect manner or helped, I think, Stacey and myself in a better way. So thank you for sharing that, Majet. So what I would love to do now is share the quote that you shared with us. I'm going to do a screen share so we can have that in front of all of us. And this is such a fantastic quote. It's by Dr. Seuss. It says, "Be who you are, say what you feel. Those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind." And I mean, no matter how many times I've read that and seen that, it always just warms my heart and is like this perfect reminder of what we really need to focus on. And Majet, I would love to hear from you why you chose this quote and why you chose to share it with us.
So I really, really love this quote because it's a reminder for me. It's a reminder for me to speak up, show up, say what you feel, be true to yourself, and speak up. It will resonate, or it will, some people will take it in a good way. Some people will be like, I don't really care. Right. And it's because there's a lot of times when I feel that, maybe I shouldn't say something, or maybe I should just stay low or keep it low. Don't have to express what I truly feel, or ask for what I need. And we're going to talk about that later, because why bother, but then, because I might just get disappointed if I ask for what I need, or if I say something that I really want to say or express how I truly feel, and the reaction of the other person may not be the one that I want to hear. But then I read this quote, be who you are and say what you feel. Because if that person, think that what you're trying to offer, what you're trying to say means something to them too, or agrees with you, or it's not just pushing aside your thoughts or your feelings or your opinions or suggestions, then great, this person is somebody I can continue having a relationship with, or cultivating a stronger connection, or this person is not my people. Right? And that's totally okay. So yeah, it's a reminder for me, and I hope that it will remind other people too to speak up and be your true authentic self, because you're not trying to hurt other people, you're just expressing yourself.
Absolutely. And I know in business, there's a lot of talk about attracting and repelling, the right people in your life, or the right people for your business, the right client, attracting your people and repelling the people that aren't right for you. And not that repelling is like, get out of my face, like I don't want you, like I don't want your business. It's not like that. It's just like, no, you're just not my people. There's somebody else that's better for you. Like that's why there are so many different doctors, there are so many different personal stylists. Like there are just so many different options, because you need to find the one that's right for you. And I think especially as a business owner, it can be easy to come to terms with that with your business and finding the right clients for you. But sometimes we might forget that, you're going to have that in life too, with your social and friend interactions and relationships. Like some people are your people and some aren't. And it's okay. Not everyone's going to be your person or your type of people. So yeah, those are great points that you brought up. Thank you.
Yeah.
So now I get the pleasure of introducing Majet. And Majet is a pre-licensed professional counselor with a Master of Science degree in community and trauma counseling from Jefferson University. She is a former paramedic. She now owns Resilient Mind Works in Northern Liberties in Philadelphia, where she works with first responders, creatives, millennials, and couples who are struggling with anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, and PTSD. Majet helps her patients process their pasts so that they can live in the present and plan a fulfilling future. She is also the owner of Diva Girl Philadelphia, which is how I met her. And Diva Girl Philadelphia is a lifestyle community that educates and empowers women by hosting conferences, volunteer abroad programs, and workshops. Majet is an international volunteer. She's done medical missions in the Philippines twice. She's helped rebuild in Puerto Rico in 2018. And since 2016, she has been working with women and children in Nepal, Ghana, Peru, and soon in India. She is also an adjunct professor at Jefferson University and a matchmaker for Talkify. Very cool. I mean, I love the diversity within your background and just everything that you bring to the table, Majet. And anyone that knows Majet knows that she is just a force, like in the best way, and a joy to know. So we're really happy to have her on today. And Majet, I'm going to hand it over to you, my dear.
Wow, thank you so much, Susan and Stacey. Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here, to be a part of your, of your movement. This is such a positive thing that you're doing, even though you're asking questions that can even go deeper, right? And yes, so with the introduction that Susan had said, again, I'm Majet, and I help people find fulfillment through counseling and community. And through Resilient Mind Works counseling, I'm able to help people who are struggling with anxiety and depression and PTSD. And with Diva Girl, I get to work with people and support them in a community setting, right? So, but today what we're going to talk about is how the resilient mind works. And resilience, and it is being able to acknowledge the adversities that we had went through in life, and being able to own the resilience, because we are who we are because of what happened to us in our past, right? And you are here watching the show, and you are in front of other people, you're in front of me, because you were able to get through the adversities in your life. We all have had it. We all have had adversities, and it's either the adversity gets us stuck, or the adversity push us for growth. So there's that post-traumatic stress, and there's that post-traumatic growth, right? And sometimes we find that growth when we get to understand our story, and that story of resilience. And our stories are those different adversities that happen in our lives that are actually traumas that happen in our lives, right? And when we understand that, we get to process those different traumas, big or small, in our lives. We're able to focus more on the present, because we understand why we do this stuff, why we react a certain way. And then, so we're going to be more present, and then we're present, we're able to plan a future that will be more fulfilling to us. Now, there's power in telling our story, right? And I don't mean get on stage and talk about your story to everyone. What it means is that telling your story, and instead of pushing it away. Because what we tend to do is that the traumatic events or the bad experiences we had, we want to run away from it, and we don't want to process it. I apologize for this. I don't know how to turn it off. Um, but we're going to keep going. So telling your story is part of the healing process. As you tell your story, you're processing the negative experience that you've had. And then to a point that you can tell your story without any emotions attached to it anymore. And what does that story or trauma becomes? It becomes a fact. It's just a fact that happens to you, and there's no emotions to it anymore. And if I may share my story really quickly. So I have had a big trauma that happened to me, plus the other little traumas that happened in my life. As an immigrant, I came to the United States when I was 16, and having to leave a country. I came from the Philippines with my parents, and that life that we had there was actually very happy. You know, we had everything that we needed. We're in a community that is thriving, and I was very happy. And then because when you hear about America, oh, the land of the free, the land of opportunities. My parents had left very stable jobs and a very stable life for an opportunity in the United States. Who wouldn't want to come to the US? Even I wanted to come to the US. I want to go to Disneyland, right? And we did. And then, and then when we came here, I realized the struggle. I saw the struggle that my parents had to endure. And as a teenager, I struggled with my own problems, going to 4 different high schools and having to work to help my family start over, buying our first family car because I had to work because I didn't want to walk in the snow anymore with the groceries. Like those stuff accumulate, and those stuff made me who I am. And then, and then going through life, and then being able to find the dream job that I thought I wanted, which is becoming a paramedic, and then having that and thinking that this will be the job that I will have for the rest of my career, and I will retire as a medic. And that was taken away when I was assaulted. I was assaulted at work, and that was another big trauma that put me in a spiral position of downhill. And that was, the struggles that I was going through for my late 20s, in my late 20s to my mid 30s. And that was the struggle that I didn't ask help for. And that actually what led me to becoming a therapist now, because I know those things, those experiences that I had endured, that I had went through, was actually preventing me from finding the fulfillment I needed in my life. And it still took me 10 years and a semester in grad school to find the help I needed. Right. And what was that? That was the mental health I needed, because there is that stigma for me, honestly, I'm like, I don't need help. I'm a helper. Right. And helpers don't ask for help. And, but then I realized when I went to grad school for counseling, and then a semester, that I realized that, shoot, I have traumas that I need to process, and seek a counselor, and the counselor helped me tell my story. And the first time I told that story again to an individual who I think, who I trusted and who wouldn't judge me or shame me for the experiences I've had, I cried, I bawled, it was really tough. But then the more I talk about my story, the more I felt healed. And then I even joined a support group. And in that support group, I was able to tell my story, and I just get choked up. Like, I didn't bawl anymore, I didn't cry so much anymore. And then to a point that I can actually talk in front of a lot of people and not feel emotion to it. There's no emotions tied to it anymore, right? Because it's just a fact. It doesn't define you, right? Our traumas doesn't need to define us. And that's when we achieve post-traumatic growth. So that is how your resilience shine. So that's why telling the story is part of the healing process, and that is so powerful. So being able to tell your story. So that's my spiel on the resiliency part. And now we can talk a little bit more, if it's okay, about what we're all going through as this trauma that we are all going through right now. Like this global pandemic that we are going through, it's very traumatic. I mean, this is abnormal, right? And how you are feeling, the feeling of anxiety, fear, anger, loneliness, disgust, like all these emotions are normal. It's okay. It's okay. Stop beating yourself up. It's okay. What we're going through as humanity in the whole entire world is not normal. So I just want to pause for a moment, just let that settle, and and we need to just let go of of feeling guilt or bad about how we feel, because there are no wrong feelings, right? So, and the two most common emotions or feelings or people struggle with are the anxiety and depression. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And anxiety is actually thinking about something that hasn't happened yet. So it's this mindset about the future, right? Thinking about something that hasn't happened yet. And while depression is actually feeling guilt, regret, feeling lonely about something that happened in the past. So anxiety is thinking about the future, and depression is thinking about the past. But when you really think about it, it's about, even the depression part, it's thinking about this may happen in the future again. So we're worried about that. So both of them are kind of like geared towards the future. You know what I'm saying? So, but where we really need to focus on is what? The here and now, the present. This is where we really need to focus on. This is where we need to be. Where we need to be is in the here and now and in the present moment. And how are we going to do that? So we feel the fear, anger, sadness, disgust. We have those feelings, acknowledge it. Name it, put a name on it. Okay, I'm feeling angry. And then don't run away from it. Feel it. Everybody's so afraid of the F word. Not that F word. The feelings. Nobody wants to feel the emotions, right? So feel it. Stay with it. Feel it. Don't hurt anyone. Don't hurt yourself, but feel it. If you're feeling sad, feel sad. If you need to go to sad town, go to sad town. But don't live there. Don't live there. You're going to have an action plan, right? So that will be the last part. Before we get to the action plan, I would love for you to understand why you're feeling this way. So now we're going back to our past, right? So let's discuss this for each step. So, and the last step is the action, right? And that is when you create the toolbox. So real quick, acknowledge it, name the feeling: anger, fear, lonely, disgusted. And there are many more. Put a name on it. Next, feel it. Don't run away from it. Running away from it doesn't work. I did that before. I worked out. I did yoga. I ran, like literally ran. I drank. I partied. I tried to forget about the feeling. And guess what? It doesn't go away. It comes right back. So feel that feeling. Feel the emotions. And then understand it. And this is where you become self-aware. And becoming self-aware and be, you know, it's such a big step in our lives. So understanding. And this is when you want to know why. Why is this triggering me? Why is this making me angry? And the reason why, it's not because you woke up this morning and you just decided that I'm going to be pissed off about this and this is going to trigger me. No, it's happening. It is triggering you because there's something that reminds you of the past. A past that was so not so pretty. A past that was negative, a past that is not, you know, that you want to forget, but then it keeps coming back. It keeps triggering you. Now we are who we are because of what happened to us in the past, and the programming that we get and the environment that we grew up in, right? So when we understand that, we're going to be able to, it's the awareness of it makes such a big difference, right? Now, after we do that, when we understand it, we go into the action part. And that is when we do the coping mechanism. So the action part is having a toolbox. And I do this with my clients, like, let's create a toolbox for you. Everybody has their own toolbox and has all these different coping mechanisms that they can use. They can open up and see which one I'm going to use today for this anxiety, which one I'm going to use today for this loneliness. So that's the action plan, right? So how we react to the stress, to the stressors that we have in our environment or where we're at now is due to the experiences that we had in the past. So, so that is kind of like the understanding I was explaining earlier. And that's, I'm sure you guys are familiar with it, the fight or flight and the freeze or fawn. You know, fight is someone who wants to take control, and it's usually is aiming for anger, using anger to create fear so they can feel safe. And flight is usually avoiding people so they don't have to face the uncertainties. And freeze is when people try to isolate because they don't trust anybody, so they feel safe, more safe if they're alone. And fawn is someone who just serve others and doesn't want to make decisions and want others to take control over them. So those are the different stress response from Pete Walker, who created this different stress responses for people. So I'm gonna end this whole thing with some tips, or not tips, but coping skills that you can put in your toolbox. So here are the stuff that some of you are probably using it already. One of them is breathing exercises. It's very common and it's my favorite, and I think it's the easiest coping skill that we can all carry in our toolbox. And if you're not very familiar, or if breathing is something that you don't get the concept of it, because it's something that we do, right, to live, and we take it for granted, but actually pausing and putting a timer for 1 minute of just sitting down and just breathing helps. And after 21 days, you feel like, you know, I'm okay. I think I can go for 5 minutes. And then we can get more advanced on that and do the breathe in for 4 seconds. Hold it for 4 seconds. And then exhale for 8 seconds. So the exhale part is longer. And you can also check out Calm app, Headspace, or go to YouTube and find breathing exercises or meditation. But breathing, giving yourself that 1 minute of just focusing on your breath. And number 2, I would like to share with you a cognitive behavioral technique wherein when we have a negative thought, it creates a negative feeling that produces a negative action. So what we think about creates the feeling and creates the action. So if we're thinking about, I might lose my job, and if that's the thought, what kind of feelings do you get from that? Worry, sadness. And what are you going to do with that feeling? The action that comes from that is that unmotivated, right? So, or if you're driving down the highway, somebody cut you off, the thought is, he's just a jerk. Or, you know, or and the feeling that you get will be, I'm angry, and then you swerve around, or you want to hit that person, you flip them the bird, you know. But if you change that thought to something positive, so being able to shift that thought to something positive, it creates a positive feeling, and the action that comes off of that is a positive action. So we can't control our first thought. I know we can't, but we can control our second thought. Negative thought comes in, because that's our programming. Pause. I can change that. Because once you know how to change your thought, you practice it, right? The feeling starts to change as well. So, and lastly, the 3 positive things around you. If you start feeling lonely, or you start getting angry or anxious, look for 3 positive things around you. What are 3 positive things? And it creates a snowball. If you look around you and you say, I actually have a home, you know, and then, oh yeah, in this house my family lives in, and I'm not alone. And then with that being said, you know, like we're gonna eat dinner together, we get to spend some time together. Like, it creates a snowball. So 3 positive things. Look in your environment. If you start to feel like, again, job is you're getting burnt out with work, and then look for positive things. I have a computer. My computer allows me to work, and that work actually allows me a paycheck, which a lot of people don't have right now. So yeah, so those are just 3 of the tools that you may put in your toolbox, or coping skills that you can put in your toolbox to carry around with you when you start feeling anxious, angry, afraid, or sad, or disgusted. So yeah, and I guess I'm gonna pause and let you guys, you know, interject and ask me some questions or clarifications if you'd like to.
Yeah, thank you, Majet. Folks who are listening live, you can chat into the chat box with questions, and we'll lift them up for Majet. Majet, what you were saying a bit ago about naming it, I always find to be one of the most powerful, you know, for me, it's actually a tool in the toolbox to be able to name what it is, because I'll get so stuck in the emotion, and then at some point it'll dawn on me like, oh, right, this is actually this. It happened to me just a few weeks ago. I mentioned on this show that I was stuck in anger, and I was just having, you know, I was impatient all day, and I was just really firmly stuck in that emotion. And then the afternoon came, and I realized, oh no, this is sadness. This is actually sadness underneath this. And I bawled my eyes out for a while.
You felt it.
And I felt it, yeah. And it was interesting because I realized, like, wow, I've been avoiding this feeling for a while. Like, I've been just circumventing it, whether it's through anger or impatience or action, like overacting, you know, trying to do too much too fast in my life. And the naming it kind of just stops it in its tracks, at least for the moment, and allows you to really feel it. And then I think there's power in that. There's power in naming it, and you know, or in some sense, it takes the power away. Like, it takes the power of that emotion away, because you see what it is, you can name it, and then you can actually really feel it and move forward from it. But yeah, I think that that's one of the best things, you know, and I'm really thankful you said it, because I think it's just key for a lot of what we're going through right now.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you sharing that. That is so true. Just by that act of being able to call it and know what it is, right? And it allows you to feel it. And I love how you said that, instead of like running away from it, or like ignoring it or dismissing it in some type of way, like it keeps coming back, right? It just keeps coming back and bothering. Hey you haven't processed me, you haven't acknowledged me, I'm gonna keep bothering you. So you know what, let's deal with it right now. Come here, let me call you by your name and feel it. Yeah, and then you're able to move on, right? So that's good.
Oh my gosh, she shared so much wisdom. I was like taking notes to like make sure that like I am processing all of this, that I can, you know, include it in the show notes too. But you shared early on in your talk about, you know, post-traumatic stress and turning that into post-traumatic growth. And that just feels really empowering too, because I think that post-traumatic stress is usually, at least in more like a common setting, is discussed just on its own. and it's viewed as like, no, this is almost like a stigma. Like, this is what you're associated as, like, you have this post-traumatic stress, and there isn't as much discussion about the growth that comes from it and how you can turn your story into a fact once you've gone through the healing process. And so much of that, I feel like, is just so beautiful and something that all of us can really take in right now, you know, since we are going through a global trauma right now. Just thinking about it, like, okay, at some point we're going to have that growth where we're going to be able to talk about what this was and how we got through it and the beauty that came from it. And yeah, I just am really grateful that you shared that. I also just felt this like wonderful warmth from you, and like this, it felt like an energetic hug, Majet, when you first started talking, and you were just validating all of the feelings that we're allowed to be experiencing right now. I was like, oh my gosh, if all of our listeners or viewers right now just didn't get like a big hug feeling right now, then they're not paying attention. And that's something else that I just really have to thank you for, because I felt it was like, oh, thank you, thank you. I think I needed that, and I'm sure that I'm not alone in that situation.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. You just gave me the chills. Yeah, thank you. I felt the hug. So yeah, like yeah, it's okay how we're feeling. You know, every day it's gonna change. Well, maybe not every day, but you know, but it will be changing. It will be the ups and downs, and that's totally okay. You know, we are going through this trauma together, and I love how you wrap that up into, you know, like there's gonna be growth from this, right? There will be, and for some people, they're seeing this in themselves. You know, for some business owners, you know, they're seeing it happening in their business. For some moms or some parents, they're seeing the growth in it. Like, you know, we're like, and that's a reflection that we can do for ourselves. Like, you know, what opportunities can come out of this? What am I learning about myself? What am I learning about the people I'm living with, right? Or my family, my friends, my community, my business, you know? And yeah, like and that's when we do those self-reflections, that is also part of our growth. So yeah, totally true. Yeah.
Well, I just want to, and folks, if anybody again has any comments or questions, feel free to use the chat. Otherwise, Susan and I could probably talk for hours about this. Majet, the other thing I really appreciated that you said, and I've seen this in my own story, but I've also seen it with I design jewelry that helps to tell people's stories, and many times traumatic stories. And the thing I appreciate that you said that relates to that is that it can take a lot of time to get to the point of actually being okay, both embracing and then telling your story. And those are two kind of separate steps in the process. For me, it took over a decade to get to the point of actually really, you know, starting to tell my own story and embracing it. And I just wanted to put that out there, both as a thank you for acknowledging that, but also that I think is very common. Like, it's, if you've been through a deep trauma, or it doesn't even matter the level of trauma. I mean, the reality is it takes a lot of time sometimes to be able to process it, understand what it means to you, and also maybe acknowledge the severity of it if it's been a really difficult one, and then get to the point where you can tell it to yourself or others. So in any case, I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on that, but that was something that really hit me of, yeah, I've seen that with myself. I've seen that with friends. I've seen that with my business. The storytelling is so key, but it's so hard too, to actually get to the point of doing it.
Oh yeah, totally. And I love that you have that another outlet of, you know, telling your story through jewelry, you know, through that. And that's amazing, because, you know, it's just a reminder of what you had gone through, and you were able to, you know, get through that and be here now at this moment in your life. And that is such a sign of resilience, right? But yes, it doesn't happen overnight. And it really takes a long, long time. Like what I said, for me too, it took me a decade, more than a decade, before I started processing, before I started processing it. And it's like, because nobody wants to talk about it. I mean, it's such a party bummer, right? Like nobody wants to talk about, like everyone knew, no, seriously, everyone knew about what happened to me. Like my friends, my family, my colleagues knew what happened to me, but no one wants to talk about it. And I totally understand. How are you going to talk to someone about that? You're afraid you're going to trigger them. You know, it's such a taboo topic, you know. So as the person who went through that, like you don't want to be a bummer, and you don't want to, you know, you don't want to just bring that up, you know, like, so there's really no opportunities, you know, for that to be processed, to be able to talk about it. So yeah, like a therapist was able to help me with that, support group was able to help me with that, but you know, but there are so many other people there who didn't get an opportunity for that, you know. So yeah, it's tough, it's not easy. So yeah.
Yeah, Majet, I know that you also know Carly Myers, who was on the show, and she's another person that has used her story and is now at a point of growth where she's able to communicate it and incorporate it in, you know, so many of her talks too. And I have to say, I'm like really honored to be in this strong group of women, like, you know, with you and Stacey and Carly and so many of the other guests that we've had on the show too, where we're able to be at a place where we can use what we've been through to help and empower and educate other people. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome. I appreciate you, and I appreciate Stacey for, you know, bringing this outlet, bringing this, you know, I want to call it podcast, show, your show, you know, and allowing people to share their story, their passion, and yeah. So I appreciate you too. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Majet. It's been a real joy and pleasure. And I'm wondering, do you have any parting words for, you've given so many words, but any other parting words or wisdom that you want to leave people with today?
Change is the only thing that's constant, right? And but we have to remind ourselves that we can't change people. We can't change, you know, we can't control the environment. We can't control a virus. We can't control other people, but we can control our thoughts. And you know, and that's something that we need to go back to if we are faced with uncertainties. And uncertainties in life happens, and it will always happen, right? And being able to prepare for it, and prepare, what I meant about that is mentally prepare for it, emotionally prepare for it by, you know, practicing the coping skills that we just talked about, and having that, you know, having a toolbox, preparing a toolbox, so that when uncertainties or change or people's reaction happens, like we just don't react to it. You know, we have, we can pause and think to ourselves first and control how we're going to react to it and the thought that comes into our head. So yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you. And thank you so much for being on today, Majet. And what is the best way for people to follow you, to get in touch with you, learn more about Diva Girl Philadelphia? Can you share all of that with us?
Of course, yes. So if you want to, you know, feel more of this energy, you know, you want to learn a little bit more, you want to be a part of a community that has a safe and supportive environment, and just like what, you know, what you guys are doing too, go to Diva Girl, Diva Girl Tribe. Follow us on Instagram, Diva Girl Tribe. If you want to be a part of our Facebook group, it's Diva Girl 411. And if you want to hear more about, you know, my counseling practice, my support groups, go to Resiliency Mentor on Instagram. So yeah, hopefully I'll hear from you.
Well, thank you so much, Majet. We will link all of this in the episode notes on the website and also YouTube. So you'll be able to find Majet, you know, anytime you need her. And obviously she's a great resource to connect into. So Thank you so much, Majet, and for everyone for listening in. And we always end our episode with the same quote from a Mary Oliver poem, which is, "What will you do with your one wild and precious life?" So thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.